So this is the third video in a series that I have been shooting, the third and the last video in this series of some of the downsides of the business or some of the cons of the business. You know, there are pros and cons to every business. And like I said in the two previous videos, the short-term rental business is no exception. So in the first video, I talked about one of the downsides of the business, the fact that you are dealing with a lot of people and some of the I guess some of the downside to that element of the business, dealing with a lot of people. And then in the second video, I talked about the risk of renting property as opposed to buying property to put on the short-term rental market, the risk involved with renting. Talked about that in the second video. In this video, what we're talking about, the third and last video in this series of what are some of the cons of the business or the downsides of the short-term rental business, some of the risk of the short-term rental business. In this one, we're talking about dealing with crises, crisis management. So when you're in the short-term rental business, essentially you are in the hospitality business, right? And so occasionally, as you're running your business and people are in and out of your property, you're going to run into a crisis occasionally. What do those crises look like? The AC goes out. There's a major plumbing issue. Those are the two biggest things, really. Major plumbing issues, or something like the AC or the heat goes out, something like that. And those can be challenging to deal with. I dealt with one, it was a couple of weeks ago? Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. It was on a Friday evening. I had a long week, and I was going to go to bed early. I was planning on getting a good night's rest, getting a good 7-8 hours of sleep. And I had planned to go to bed around 9:30 on a Friday night. Everything was going well, and then I got a message from one of my guests who's renting one of my properties. And they said that the toilet wasn't flushing properly. And in this particular apartment, or this particular short-term rental, it was a major issue because there's only one bathroom. So if the toilet's not flushing properly, they can't use the toilet. Yes, that's a major issue. So anyway, I had to, instead of going to bed at 9:30, I had to drive out to that property at 9:30 and see what the issue was. Of course, it was actually, I was about to say, of course, it was their fault. It wasn't their fault this time. It was actually an issue that had to do with a sump pump that was in that basement. In that particular property, there's the apartment that was being rented is in the basement. And some of you may know, when you have a bathroom in the basement, you have to have a sump pump down there to pump out the sewage into the main line. Well, anyway, there was a problem with that sump pump, so it wasn't their fault. But anyway, I had to drive out there and address that problem. It took me about a couple hours to address it, and it was pretty inconvenient for me. It was pretty inconvenient. I was looking forward to a good night's rest and turning in early and just getting a full 8 hours of sleep. And next thing you know, I'm dealing with a plumbing issue late at night. Now, once you have your business up and running and you have a solid system in place, and you have maintenance people who can handle those things, managing crises like that becomes easier. But in situations like I just mentioned, when it happens late at night, a lot of times plumbers aren't available 24/7. So you might find yourself going out there yourself like I did. Or if you can't do that, you'll be scrambling to find somebody who can. So the inconveniences like that come up sometimes. When there's a crisis, you have to deal with it. And the crisis may not actually be a real crisis. It's a crisis in that moment because of the nature of the business. You're in the hospitality business, so people, when they come to stay with you, they expect a pleasant experience. So let's talk about something less, something that's not so, that isn't such as much of a major issue as a plumbing issue or the AC going out. It could be something like maybe they see a roach. Maybe they see a roach in the apartment or a roach in the house, right? And they happen to be a guest who has a fear of a phobia of roaches, and see one little roach. Maybe the roach came in when they opened the door. Who knows? But they see a roach, and then they're freaking out about the roach. They're freaking out about the roach. And let's say again, it's late at night, and they're texting you saying, "Hey, you have roaches," and they're freaking out again because they have a phobia of roaches. Now you don't really have roaches. You spray for roaches, and you have pest control, but every now and then, a bug will get in. That's not a true crisis, but to that guest, it's a crisis. And if it's a crisis to the guest, then it becomes a crisis to you because they're going to give you a headache about it. You have to be able to manage situations like that. You have to be able to manage situations like that. And I've come across situations like that, whether it be a plumbing issue, an issue with the heating or air, the guest sees a bug in the house, something like that, or various other things. Maybe they think it's not as clean as it should be. Now, some people, I would say, no matter what you do, you cannot please them, no matter what you do. And that's a crisis in itself for you as well. Occasionally, you're going to get someone rent from you who cannot be pleased no matter what. No matter what. You're going to have to be able to deal with that. And that's going to be a crisis as well that you have to deal with. And again, it's not truly a crisis like, when you look at the definition of a crisis, but it feels like a crisis in the moment because it's extremely inconvenient and can be stressful. So crisis management is something that you'll have to get really good at in this business, crisis management, because they're going to pop up every now and then. And you have to be able to remain cool under pressure. You have to be able to remain cool under pressure. I can give you several examples, but I don't like making these videos too long. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. And this is the third of in a series of videos, the third and last video, talking about some of the risks of the business, the cons of the business, the downsides of the business. And that third one is every now and then you're going to have to deal with a crisis, and you're going to have to manage that crisis, and it can be stressful. So there you have it.